Back on the record in the case People versus Brandon Martin, RAF 150-6112. Record should reflect Mr. Martin is present with both counsel. The people are present. All members of our jury and alternates are present. Next witness.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. People call Sergeant Paul Gamache.
Stand. Face the clerk, raise your right hand, please.
Please solemnly state that the evidence given in the matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help God?
Yes, I do. You can remove your mask, adjust the microphone accordingly, and this is laser pointer in case you need it.
Please state, spell your first and last name for the record.
Paul Christopher Gamache, first is P-A-U-L, last is G-A-M-A-C-H-E.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Gamache. Back in September 17th of 2015, what was your occupation?
I was a sergeant for the Corona Police Department.
And are you still a sergeant with the Corona Police Department?
No, sir, I've retired.
Okay. When did you retire?
2017.
Okay. Do you recommend it?
I'm sorry?
Do you recommend it?
Highly.
Thank you. Well, congratulations on your retirement. Let me ask you some questions, though, when you were a sergeant with Corona. On 9/17, 2015, were you dispatched to an address on Winthrop Drive in the city of Corona?
Yes, I was.
Okay. That number was 1027 Winthrop. And let me show you People's 217 for identification. Do you see that photograph in front of you?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you recognize that as the address you went to?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. When you went there, Sergeant, I'll call you retired Sergeant. When you went there, retired Sergeant, what was the information you had prior to arriving on scene?
Initially, I was dispatched to a medical aid call, and while I was driving, they told me it was a possible homicide.
Okay. Were you the first officer to arrive?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And when you arrived, did you make contact with anybody outside of the residence?
Yes, I did.
Who is that?
Michael Anderson.
Okay. And did Michael Anderson give you some information as to the circumstances of the reason he called 911?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Was some of that information regarding a potential suspect being a relative of Michael Anderson?
Yes.
Okay. Was that person at that time given to you as Brandon Martin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And also, in terms of who might be inside the home, did Michael relay to you that his father may be inside the home?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At that time, when you went into the house, did you go in alone or were other officers with you?
I went in with 2 other officers.
Okay. Let me show you 95 for identification. And do you see that photograph there?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
What are we looking at?
We're looking at the front door of the residence facing, we are standing south and we are looking north through the center first floor of the house.
Okay. And you can see the wood floor in there, and that runs all the way to the back of the house, to the back slider?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. And when you looked in, what did you see?
I could see a person on the floor.
And whereabouts was that person on the floor?
I'm sure how to use your pen here. Oh, there we go. Right about there.
Okay. So if we're looking at the photograph, towards the back of the photograph in front of the rear slider area?
Yes.
Okay. And when you looked at that person, what could you tell?
That he was laying on the ground and there was blood pooling around him.
Okay. When you saw him, were you able to ascertain his race at that time?
There was too much blood.
Okay. Let me show you what we marked as People's 50 for identification. Do you see that photograph there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that the male that you saw from the front door?
Yes, sir.
And that's the blood that you saw when you arrived.
Yes.
And looking at this photograph here, there appears to be where this person was later identified as Ricky Anderson. Is that correct?
Correct.
And where Mr. Anderson's head is there appears to be like a dog bed.
Yes.
When you were there, did you find a small dog inside the house?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. And then this photograph here, does that represent fairly to you what you saw initially when you entered into the house?
Yes.
You see there's a beer bottle there behind Mr. Anderson's back?
Yes, to where his head is at, if you go up, just for perspective-wise, right up here is the sliding glass door.
Okay.
We were looking at from the first photograph.
Okay.
So you're indicating above his head, on this picture would be north, I suppose, is where the sliders would
Yes, Your Honor.
be. All right, thank you.
And when you saw him, at that time, did he appear to be alive to you?
He did make some sounds, but I don't think he was actually alive.
Okay. But you heard sounds?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you said you were inside the residence, and the information you had, you did not know if the perpetrator was inside the residence at that time?
No, we had no idea.
Okay. What is the procedure for you as a law officer entering a house in those circumstances?
Well, the first thing that needs to be done is we need to check to make sure there's nobody that's going to cause harm to us while we're searching the house or taking care of victims.
Okay.
So our main priority is to secure the inside of it. And once we know it's secure, then we can bring the medical personnel in to take care of anything that needs to get taken care of.
Okay. So even if you were there and you heard sounds coming from Mr. Anderson, you would have to wait to render aid or have aid rendered to him until the house was cleared?
Yes, sir. It's probably the hardest thing to do as an officer.
Let me show you 51 for the application. And do you see that photograph there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, does this photograph appear to be the same location where Mr. Anderson was lying, but he has now been taken away from the house?
That is correct. On the lower left-hand portion of the photograph would have been where he was, which would be right about here.
Right.
Right there.
The area between the wood floor and the carpet?
Yes, sir.
And his head was lying on the doggy bed there?
Correct.
Okay. And then just in front of the slider, we have, is that a chair knocked over?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. And then let me show you 52 for identification. You see 52 there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, this gives us a view from the living room area into the kitchen area?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you see when you looked to the right of Mr. Anderson into the kitchen area?
On the far side of the table, and I'll point to it right over here, in this area here, I saw another person up against the kitchen cabinets, which are there, and the kind of facing north, the same way this victim or first victim was, head north, feet south.
If we can zoom in on this, just behind the table there, can you see the body of a man just behind the kitchen table there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's the second person, the second man you saw inside the home when you arrived?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you saw him, were there any clues as to who he might be or what he was doing there?
He had some type of a uniform shirt on, and it was purple with some kind of white striping on it. Looked like something you'd see on a car dealership worker or something like that. So it looked like a uniform, and he had tan khaki pants on, which also looked similar to a uniform. Okay. On the top of the table that we're looking at here in the picture.
Yep.
Right in this area here, there was a clipboard that had ADT security paperwork on top of it. I didn't stare at it for long, but I glanced because I was concerned with the safety, so I needed to move quickly in the house.
Okay. So you're 54 for identification. Does that appear to be the paperwork belonging to ADT that you saw?
Give me 1 second, I'm getting blind in my age here. Yes, sir.
And so as you said just now, as you proceeded from Mr. Anderson, you turned to your right, you saw this paperwork that seemed to be associated with somebody who appeared to be a worker on the floor.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, you're just moving through with the purpose of making sure the house is safe from any perpetrator.
Correct.
Now, that person who's on the floor, you later got to know him to be Mr. Barry Swanson?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Once you had identified that second body, what was the next thing that you saw or you did?
When I saw Mr. Swanson, I looked to my left, and in the middle of the living room area, I saw blood drag marks on the carpeting, which made their way towards a second door, which is a pedestrian door into the garage.
Okay. We'll go there in a minute. I just wanted to show you a couple of more photographs, if I may, which are a little bit out of sequence in terms of time. Let me show you 49 for identification. You see 49 there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Beecham. What are we looking at there?
You're looking at Mr. Barry Swanson.
Okay. And at this point, I take it that the house has been swept and it's been safe and 5 paramedics came in.
Not yet.
Okay. Well, see the person with the glove in the top half of the picture?
Yes, sir.
Does that appear to be a paramedic?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That appears to be the uniform and the position of Mr. Swanson when you initially saw him.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then showing 50. 55 for identification. You see that photograph there?
Yes, sir.
And does that also appear to be a photograph of Mr. Swanson when he was having aid rendered to him?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And then just quickly showing 56 for identification. And there's that photograph consistent with the injuries you saw on Mr. Swanson when you arrived.
I couldn't actually see what injuries he had. I didn't have time to physically check his body.
Okay. Does that photograph appear to you to be the arm of Mr. Swanson?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now, I think you just mentioned that you saw what you described as a trail of blood.
Correct.
And where was that trail?
It was in the living room.
Okay. And let me show you 61 for identification. You see that photograph there?
Yes, sir, I do.
Does that appear to be the trail that you were referring to?
That's correct.
Okay. And you said that was leading from the living room area into the hallway that leads into the garage?
Correct.
Okay. And then showing you 62 for identification. You see that photograph there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that appear to be the continuation of the blood trail from the living room into the hallway leading to the garage?
Yes.
Okay. If we look at that photograph, at the top of the photograph, there appears to be a door.
Correct.
Is that the door that led into the garage?
Yes, sir.
And then to the left of the door, there appears to be a baseball bat leaning up against the wall.
Correct.
Okay. And that's what you saw when you arrived?
Yes.
Okay. And then when you went inside the garage, what did you see?
I saw another individual on the floor with blood around his head.
Okay. And I'm going to show you 152. And you see that photograph there?
Yes, sir.
Does that appear to be the man that you found in the garage when you arrived?
Yes.
And that person was later known to you to be Mr. Michael Martin?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Now, in terms of your role there, did you try and ascertain any information regarding Mr. Barry Swanson?
Yes, I did.
And how were you able to do that?
When I saw the ADT security sticker on the clipboard, let me back up a little bit. Once we finished clearing the house and had medical aid come in as quickly as we could, I went outside and called my dispatch center and asked them to find an 800 number for me for ADT security so I could contact them.
Okay. Well, while you were there, did you find any car keys on or did you retrieve any wallets or car keys belonging to Mr. Swanson?
No, sir.
To Mr. Anderson?
No, sir.
Okay. Or to Mr. Martin?
No, sir.
Okay. So dispatch were asked to contact ADT to see if they had somebody working there that day.
I actually asked for the phone number so I could call them myself to
Okay.
cut out the middleman.
Did you talk to ADT?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And were they able to provide you with the information at that time?
No.
Okay. Was there information that you provided them and they were then going to research what had happened?
Yes.
Okay. Were you contacted at some point later by somebody called Michael Harvey?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. And who did Michael Harvey say he was?
He said he was the son of Barry Swanson.
Okay. And were you able to get information from Mr. Harvey regarding whether his dad was working as a ADT security installer?
Yes.
Sustained.
Were you given information, just yes or no, regarding Barry Swanson working as ADT?
Yes.
Okay. And were you also given information as to whether Barry Swanson drove a 2012 Raptor Ford truck?
Yes, I was.
Okay. When you were given that information, what did you do with that information?
I had my dispatch center put a felony stop on the vehicle.
Okay. And when we're talking about a felony stop, we're talking about, is that a bolo? Be on the lookout for?
Technically, yes. Technically, no. A felony stop would be very similar to placing a car in the system as stolen.
Okay.
If an officer happens to run the plate, they'll know it's a stolen vehicle and treat it accordingly.
Okay. And you were able to get that information on the 2012 Raptor from Mr. Harvey?
I was able to get Barry Swanson's last name, or Barry's last name from him, because all we had was a Barry.
Okay.
Once we got that information, I talked to Mr. Harvey, and he told me that he lived in Riverside, and I asked him.
Sustained.
Just you received the
Answer that he lived in Riverside is stricken. Juries admonished to disregard. Next question.
you received the information. With that information, you were able to put out a felony stop.
Yes, sir.
And did you also put out a bolo for Brandon Martin at the same time?
No, I did not.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Ross?
Good afternoon, Mr. Gamache. How are
Good
you?
afternoon. Good, sir. Thank you.
What time did you arrive at the residence on Winthrop?
I don't know the actual arrival time. It was short time after 6:35, I think.
Were you the first officer to arrive?
Yes, sir, I was.
What was the first thing you did upon arrival?
Park my car.
Did you then exit your vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Did you walk up to the house?
No, I did not.
Did you wait for backup to arrive?
Yes, I did.
How long was it before your backup arrived?
A few minutes.
You recall which officers arrived as backup?
Robert Paul and Albert Gutierrez?
After those two officers arrived, did you approach the house?
Yes.
Which side of the home did you go to?
South side?
It was at the front door or the side door?
It would be the front door.
Front door. Were you able to enter the house through the front door?
Yes.
Was the door open?
I believe it was partially open.
Okay, so maybe ajar?
Fair to say, yes.
Okay, so you didn't have to turn the knob or use a key to get in. You were just able to push the door open?
Correct.
Did you notice any blood on the door?
I didn't notice any on the door.
And as you opened the door and looked in, you mentioned you saw someone lying towards the back of the house. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
When you did a protective sweep of the house, did you go into all of the bedrooms?
Yes.
Did you notice anything unusual in any of the bedrooms?
Do you understand the question?
No.
Sustained.
Did you notice any, well, strike that. Let me ask you another question. Was it a one-story, two-story home?
Two-story.
Did you personally go up to the second floor?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you see any blood on the stairs leading up to the second floor?
I don't recall if there was.
What about in any of the bedrooms in the second floor?
I don't recall if there was.
Did you see any blood on the walls on the second floor?
I don't recall if there was.
What about on the railing?
I don't recall that.
Did you locate at any point inside the house any shoe prints?
No, I didn't locate any shoe prints.
You didn't see any shoe prints, maybe blood prints, anything like that?
There was prints of all types throughout the house, but my priority is securing the residence and getting medical aid.
Okay.
And then teams follow me and do those types of things, recovering evidence and photographs, whatnot. So,
Well, after you had secured the home and the EMTs had arrived, did you then start looking around and doing some investigation?
I actually walked out of the house.
You walked out?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, did you come back in?
I may have gone in. I don't recall if I did or didn't.
Okay, but in the time that you were in the home, you did not notice any bloody footprints on the carpeting or flooring?
There could have been, but that's not my priority. I was a scene supervisor, so I don't look for those types of things.
Great. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Redirect, Mr. Kurz.
No, you're right.
Witness excused or subject to recall?
That's fine.
You're excused. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next witness.
Thank you. If you could call Detective Brad Voorhees.
Stand and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly state that the evidence you shall give in the matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
You can adjust the mic accordingly. Yes, sir. Use your laser pointer if you need it. Thank you.
Okay, spell your first and your last name for the record.
First name of Brad, B-R-A-D. Last of Voorhees, V-O-O-R-H-E-E-S.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
What is your occupation?
I'm currently a sergeant with the Corona Police Department.
Back in 2015, were you sergeant?
No, sir.
What was your title back then?
I was a detective currently working the sexual assault unit.
In 2015, how long had you been a sworn peace officer in California?
I was a sworn police officer in '96, so
Somebody can do the math on that?
yeah,
Okay. And what department do you work for?
City of Corona.
Now, you said that you worked SACA, or the Sexual Assault Child Abuse Unit,
Yes, sir.
in 2015.
Yes.
Now, in September of 2015, I understand that you were called to the scene of at Winthrop Drive, September 17th, 2015.
Yes, sir.
Did that have anything to do with sexual assault or child abuse?
No, sir.
Why were you called to that scene?
My prior experience was also a homicide investigator. I just happened to be working SACA for a short time, and we got a call for a homicide, and they asked me to respond to, my goal was to be processing the crime scene.
Okay. And this one was not just a homicide, is that correct?
No.
No, it's not correct?
No, it was multiple.
This one was potentially a triple, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
When you arrived on scene, did you arrive on September 17, 2015?
Yes.
When you arrived there, approximately what time?
I think I got there about 7 p.m.
And what was your role in the investigation?
I was assigned to do the crime scene investigation.
And what does that mean?
Usually we're going to have a case agent who will oversee the whole investigation. My role was to oversee the crime scene. I was to have a team assembled to search for items of evidence. I was to oversee the items being collected and direct our forensic technician to collect any evidence that was located.
The decedents in this case, I think you became aware of their names, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
One of them was Michael Martin.
Yes.
One of them was Ricky Martin. I'm sorry, Ricky Anderson.
Yes.
And then the last one was Barry Swanson.
Yes, sir.
Was Ricky Anderson still at the scene when you arrived?
No, sir.
Why not?
I was told that he was transported due to his injuries to a local hospital.
And at some point, did you go to the hospital or did another detective or officer go to the hospital?
Another detective or an officer at a later time. I'm not sure who.
So your role is basically seen at the Winthrop address, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Were the other two bodies still at the scene when you arrived?
Yes, they were.
Now, why was it that Ricky was transported to the hospital, but Mr. Martin and Mr. Swanson were still at the scene?
They were pronounced dead at the scene, and per protocol, they don't move the bodies once they're declared dead.
Once a body is declared dead, do you even have jurisdiction to process the body or remove the body?
No, sir.
And where does that jurisdiction now lie?
Notification is made to the Riverside Coroner's Office, who will then send a representative to assist in the investigation.
All right. So going back to the scene, showing you People's 96. You recognize that photograph?
Yes.
And what is that?
That's the front door to the residence.
Do you see what's above the doorknob?
A keypad, like an electronic entry.
Okay. And showing you People's 97. And what is that?
I believe that's the inside of that same door you just showed me, the door.
And on the bottom left of this photograph, do you see a box there?
Yes, I do.
As I zoom in, what is that? Do you see what that box is for?
It's a box resembling the lock that looks like it was on that door.
Showing you People's 98. There we go. All right, do you see this photograph?
Yes, I do.
In these photographs, did you take these photos?
I did not.
Does somebody take these photographs basically on your behalf as the scene supervisor?
Yes, sir.
And who is it? A forensic technician or?
One of our forensic technicians, his name was Nathan Devlin.
Okay. But you're there, you're supervising the scene, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And so do they look to you for any sort of direction as to what should be memorialized as far as photos go?
Yes, they pretty much know what they need to take, but yes, they take overall photos prior to our search.
Okay. And in this photograph, what location in the house is this?
That would be in the living room. I'm kind of looking in a northeast direction. That is a chair that's in the living room near the kitchen.
just one moment. All right, move on. Oh, in the photograph itself, do you see what I'm pointing at right here?
It looks like a wheelchair.
Okay, and in back of that wheelchair, what do you see there?
To the back of that wheelchair?
Right, behind it.
That would be the like a reclining chair, a leather reclining chair.
Showing you people's 99. Recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what are we looking at here?
I've walked through the front door at that point into the living room, and I'm again looking northbound, or north, and that would be the transition between the living room to your left and the kitchen on your right.
You said that the three individuals that you saw there, two of them were still there. That was Mr. Martin and Mr. Swanson. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you see where Mr. Anderson would have been in this photograph?
Yes, I was told that's where he was when responding officers responded.
Okay, and if you can show the jury where exactly there's corroborating evidence for that.
Apparently he was laying in this area where all the blood is.
Okay. And do you see any signs of struggle in this photograph?
The chair is overturned. You can't really see it so much, but the sliding glass door is shattered, and it looks like it's a double pane, shattered from the inside, not broken on the outside.
Very good. Now showing you people's 100. You see that photograph?
Yes, sir.
And what is this photograph depicting?
That would be Mr. Swanson. He's laying in the kitchen between the dining room table and the wall or the countertop.
Showing you people's 101. In this photograph, what do you see?
I'm near the kitchen. I'm looking west into the living room.
Now, there's some gloves here on the ground. Were those there when you arrived?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And looking at this area, do you, and based on your training and experience, are those gloves part of the evidence, or do you know what they're for?
They didn't appear to be evidence of the crime. I think they were discarded gloves either from an officer or probably AMR or fire personnel.
And now I'm going to zoom in the back of the carpet. Do you see anything significant as I zoom in to the top of the photograph?
Yes, it would be a trail, and it's leading from that brown carpet on the right-hand side out towards the garage area.
Did you follow that trail?
Yes, I did.
Showing you people's 124. What is this photograph?
From that angle, I'm in the garage looking into the house, and it appears to be blood stains on the carpet, and they're pooling in different locations.
And you said you followed the trail. Can you tell us where you, in the photograph previously to this, which room is that in? Can you point the jury in the direction?
Like I said, I'm in the garage. The blood trail started in that the living room near that reclining leather chair and proceeded out here towards the garage.
And so you were just pointing up to the upper right doorway there that leads into the living room. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm showing you People's 123. Is that another angle zoomed in of the blood trail?
Yes, sir.
Showing you People's 122. What is this photograph?
Again, I'm standing where we're standing in the garage at that point. That is the threshold of the transition from the garage to the carpet into the home.
And where is the garage and where is the home in this photograph?
This would be the garage area. I believe it's a little rug outside the garage door, the threshold, and then leads into the home itself.
Okay, and you see the red substance in the middle, middle of the photograph there?
There.
Now I'm showing you People's 121. And do you see the red substance in that photograph but in a different angle?
Yes, I do.
And will you just describe what you see here?
It's obviously, well, it tested positive for a blood. It looks to me as if something was drugged to that point, had to have made contact with the threshold and the transition into the house, and obviously enough blood to make it pool and run down the ledge.
Showing you People's 120. What's in this photograph?
That would be the door leading to the garage, where those pictures were you just mentioned. And also to the left, I see a baseball bat that was inside the home leading out towards the garage.
Was that baseball bat collected?
Yes, it was.
Did you bring that baseball bat to court today?
Yes, I did.
We'll come back to that. People's 119. And what do we see? What are we looking at here in this photograph?
Again, I'm inside looking out. That would be the threshold we just talked about. And again, the blood continues here into the garage. Obviously, it gets darker at that point, and I can't see past that.
All right. Now we'll move on to People's 125. And in this photograph, what do you see?
There's a body lying on the ground, which was later identified as Mr. Michael Martin. That blood trail led to where his body was found.
People's 128. That Mr. Martin as he was found.
Yes, sir.
And so we have a record of it. Where do you see the blood? Where do you see blood in this photograph?
It's pooling all around the backside of his head.
Showing you People's 62. Is this a photograph from a different angle, but leading now back from kind of the living room area towards the garage?
Yes, it would be exactly what you described. Placards have been in place now of items of evidence that we will be collecting.
And what are placards? What are they used for?
Once the initial photos are taken, like we were just looking at, there was no placards in those photos. Now, searching personnel as well as myself will identify items that we determined to collect. So they've been identified with a marker, which will then later on reflect what they were and in a log.
Now showing you people's 218 to 18. This diagram look familiar to you?
Yes, sir.
What's this representative of?
It's an overall diagram of the house or the floor plan or the layout and position of furniture within the house.
Okay. And the way that items are identified in this photograph, is that a fair and accurate representation of the actual house?
Yes, sir.
So where it states front door, that's in fact where the front door is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And same thing with the back slider and garage.
Yes.
Will you show the jury the blood trail in this diagram, where it began and where it ultimately ended to where Mr. Martin was found?
There was a large amount of blood on the reclining chair, but it looks like it began here. It looks like he drugged the body and walked in through here and eventually out the garage door.
So what you indicated, there was a chair in the living room. The blood trail started from that chair right in front of it, all the way down to the left of this exhibit, through the first left door into the hallway.
Yes.
Where it leads into the garage.
Yes.
Showing you people's 102. This photograph, I think previously you testified that this was the location in another photograph, but where we see the items here is where Mr. Anderson was located at one point.
Yes, sir.
In this photograph, there is a Modelo beer bottle, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And if I zoom in, is there still beer inside that beer bottle? Or do
I
you know?
believe so. It looks like it was still capped.
It was still capped. Showing you people's 131. See that photograph?
Yes, sir.
The blood here on the left side of the exhibit, is that the location near where the body was located?
Yes, it was.
Mr. Anderson's body, to be precise.
We have an answer to that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Showing you people's 57. In this photograph, do you see yourself in there?
I would be the one on the left in the white white shirt.
What are you doing here?
Myself and Detective Glenn were measuring blood spatter up on the wall, and those are just for reference for measurement marks.
Okay. Now, in this photograph, you can't, well, from right now, from this perspective, you cannot see the blood spatter. Would you agree?
I agree. No, we cannot.
If I zoom in, you see blood spatter there.
Yes, appear to be a couple of drops here and near my hand in the ruler by the window.
Zooming back out, now showing you people's 58. In this photograph, is this a closer view of your measurements showing the blood spatter?
Yes, this would be above where we were just talking, a little bit higher mark on the wall.
Measurements here, is that in inches or centimeters or what?
That would be in inches, yes.
So where your hand is 72 inches?
Yeah, 72 up to about 76 in that area.
Okay. And as you can see, the blood spatter actually goes higher than that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, up onto the ceiling.
Showing you people's 59. You see, what is this a photograph of?
Down below would have been my hand at the 72-inch mark. Obviously don't have enough ruler. This line right here would be the transition from the wall to the ceiling. So you can see blood on the wall as well as a couple of drops up on the ceiling.
You stated that you collected the bat, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Showing you people 63, is that the bat that you collected?
Yes, it was.
Showing you people 64. And what is this a photo of?
Again, that would be the recliner in the living room as well as a table lamp and another sofa.
You see some items behind the recliner?
Yes, I do.
Showing you people 65. What's this photograph depicting?
Those would be blood spatter on the arm of the chair.
And behind it, you see the items that was on that end table, is that correct?
The table right here, yes.
It looks like weights.
Those would be little small weights, yeah.
Okay. Showing you people 66. What is this a photo of?
On the monitor, it's a little better. It looks like the seat portion of the chair. Can't tell if that's the back of the chair or the seat portion. Come out a little bit. I believe it's the seat portion, and here would be the armrest, and down below was the something on the floor. So I think I'm looking down on it at that point.
I'm showing you people's 103. See this photograph?
Yes, I do.
And again, we have the items from the table that's next to the chair. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then also on that table is a lamp. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
People's 104. Zoom in on this. Do you see the lamp in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And do you see anything behind that lamp?
A wall and a shutter covering the window, a blind.
These blinds covering the window, is there anything on those blinds that you can see?
Yes, there appears to be blood spatter on the wall as well, or the window covering.
On the blinds?
Yes.
And then on the wall as well?
Yes, sir.
Do you know if those blinds were opened or closed during the investigation?
Everything was photographed as is.
Okay. So it may have been moved before you got there, is that correct?
Could have been, yes.
Showing you people 67, going back to the lamp, specifically the lamp shade, do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Do you see anything of significance on that lampshade?
Yes, there was blood spatter on the lampshade as well.
Showing you people's 70. These are the items on that table, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you see that there's a California Visiting Nurse Association document there?
Yes, I do.
And is there anything that you see of significance on that?
Again, I see blood spatter on that as well as the toilet paper that's been placed on it as well.
Showing you people 71. This photograph, another photograph that also depicts blood spatter on the wall there.
Yes, sir.
People 68. You know what that is?
That would be the back of the chair, like a foot the chair, and then obviously the blood that was found underneath the chair, behind the chair.
So there was no body found in this chair, is that correct?
No, sir.
However, there was some evidence of blood spatter on the wall, blinds, and items near the chair?
Yes, sir.
And then if I understand you correctly, this is the rear of the chair, and there is blood on the bottom.
Yes, sir.
I think you said, did you call blood pooling?
Blood pooling, yes.
A pool of blood. Okay.
Mr. Beecham, he's obviously going to be back tomorrow. Is this a good place to break?
Sure.
All right, then, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and break for the day. If you could just leave your notebooks on your seats, the deputy will lock them up overnight, return them to you tomorrow. We'll remind all of you not to discuss the facts of this case amongst yourselves or with anyone unrelated to the trial, not form or express any opinion until you've heard all the evidence. We'll see all of you tomorrow morning at